All right, I guess we're on. We're all waiting for Ethan. We're all looking around. All right, guys. Game one of the NBA playoffs for the Miami Heat. We're less than 30 minutes away. I guess from the start of the game, but usually we're up 10 minutes after. But some exciting things going on. We just found out Derrick Jones Jr. is cleared to play, which I don't think anybody would have thought that after that scary fall the other day, getting wheeled out on the stretcher. Scary stuff. And the fact that he's able to play is big news. And then we all know that Kendrick Nunn is out of the starting lineup. We're not quite sure yet who is going to be the starter. Well, most likely it's going to be Goran Dragic. Maybe it's going to be Tyler Hero. I think most of our money's on Dragic at this point. But I'm gonna go ahead and go to Ethan because he finally showed back up. Ethan, can you hear us? Uh-oh.
Yeah, you make it sound like I'm late. Yes, I'm here.
You are.
I did put this on Twitter. We're waiting on it any of the next few minutes, but I do feel like it probably will be Dragic, but I also feel like we kind of jumped to a conclusion based on what's happened the past few days. And Eric always holds a card in his pocket. I've always felt that one of these two, the Dragic or the Hero card, was the one he was going to play. Obviously, Nunn's situation kind of sped it up a little bit. Let's just go around the horn right now before we do it. Who do you want starting today, Dragic or Hero? Ryan?
I think Dragic makes the most sense. He started the last game. He's a proven all-star point guard, so I'll give him that nod.
Kylie?
I'd say Dragic too. I think that he earned the promotion, and obviously I love Tyler, but I think he has a lot still to prove.
Brady, you have been a proponent of?
Well, I've been saying Nunn should start because I like Tyler Hero and Dragic off the bench, but between Hero and Dragic, I think it's definitely got to go Dragic. Especially today is going to be it has to be a big Tyler Hero game off the bench because he's going to be one of their only scorers coming to be the main guy. So unless Nunn shows up like he was mid-season, but this is going to be a Tyler Hero game off the bench, hopefully.
To me, the best argument, Al, for starting Goran is that Tyler and Nunn have better chemistry than Nunn and Dragic do. That is the end of the argument.
The Heat
because the other argument is Tyler gives you something different in the starting lineup.
Well, the Heat just announced that Goran Dragic is starting.
Okay.
So honestly, I did want to see that look with Hero starting. I liked the way that looked when we saw a little bit of it. But at the end of the day, you said it a million times. Spoelstra goes with the tried and true guys, right? Guys he can rely on, and he knows he can rely on Goran Dragic. And also, anytime you have Goran Dragic and Kendrick Nunn in the game at the same time, your defense falls off a cliff. So you have to stagger those guys, and the best way to do that is if you're going to take Nunn out of the lineup, is start Goran Dragic.
So let's look at what happens to Kendrick Nunn now, because I don't think anybody expected Derrick Jones Jr. to be playing in this game. And as our Greg Sylvander reported first, and then Eric Spoelstra sort of confirmed, he is playing in this game right after that scary neck injury, which puts him right square back in the rotation. So if you're talking about your bench, Olynyk, Iguodala, Hero, Derrick Jones Jr., Nunn's your 10th, right? Does Eric play 10 strong today, big minutes? What do you think, Brady?
I think he has to play 10 because just looking at you saying Nunn should be the 10th, I think the first 9 guys, other than Hero, you're not having a main scorer. You're looking at Iguodala. You're looking Olynyk. Obviously, is a shooter and a scorer, but he's Derrick Jones obviously isn't. I just think that Nunn is going to need to be one of the main guys with Hero off the bench to give you points because that's been the biggest thing all season is just having the bench is not falling off after the starters come out. They've been basically just as good as the starters, especially on offense. So I think it's just got to be Nunn is going to get major minutes unless he comes in for the first 6 minutes and he's just not scoring like he's been. I think then maybe they roll in the second half with him maybe out of the rotation. They run 9.
I'm going to get to Kylie and to Ryan on this since both of you on social media, particularly Ryan, enjoy kind of the back and forth between the players and where guys are going to go and all that stuff. Is the TJ versus Jimmy thing still interesting at this point?
I'll begin. It is if TJ Warren goes off today. He was shut down essentially in the last meeting. He sat out the last game before that. But if he doesn't score, if he doesn't improve, if he hits 20 or less, it's a non-issue really.
Kylie, is the beef for you?
Honestly, I just feel like it might be over. I feel like they had that one game, and TJ Warren didn't live up to the hype, and Jimmy Butler did. And so now it's like, maybe in TJ Warren's mind, maybe it still is, but I feel like in Jimmy Butler's mind, it's not. Like, he's done with it.
I polled something. I said, what is the biggest? And again, Heat fans are so cocky right now that it's really hard to to kind of get through it. But I mean, I said basically, what would be the biggest concern today, or what is the biggest key to the Heat winning? Bam being dominant. Obviously the game from getting a game from your shooters. Butler outplays Warren. Or I think the fourth was no 2017 Oladipo, and essentially in a big win, it was the shooters. Is that in your view? I mean, it's easy to simplify it, but is that in your view, the most important thing out?
Yeah, the thing with when you think about all the different things that can go wrong, go right for the Heat, the one thing that if it goes well, the Heat can overcome just about anything is that they shoot the way that we know they can shoot, right? If Duncan Robinson does his thing, if you get something from Kelly, if Jay Crowder, if these guys start going off, there's almost the point of attack defense goes out the window. Like, all these concerns go out the window if they're just lighting it up from three. Because it puts so much pressure on the other team's defense, and then it puts pressure on that other team's offense. A team like the Pacers, who are not a good three-point shooting team, to come back and try to shoot with the Heat. And if that's what their offense is going to be, you win that battle every single time. So at the end of the day, it's just all about the shooters. It's right. Miami can win grinded out games, right? They can win some low scoring games. They can play some They can play a defensive battle. But to mitigate all that, they need to shoot the lights out, and it's game over for the Pacers.
One of the biggest concerns that I don't think has been talked about very much, although Nikias hit on it on 5 on the floor last night, is that while the Heat were an exceptional overtime team, they were not a great clutch team, particularly the second half of the season. And really in this bracket, I mean, they're 3 and 5. I don't look too much into the record, but when they've had opportunities to make plays at the end, a lot of times they haven't. The Toronto game is the one that sticks out. Is that a concern? We just brought in Alfredo. Is that a concern at this stage? Kind of the way they played in the clutch, particularly playing through Jimmy.
Well, I think it's an interesting question because they've changed the way they play all throughout the year, right? And most of the offense now goes through Bam, and most of it is handoffs and three-point shooting. So I think Spoelstra, all he has to do is make sure he gets it into their heads that the intensity is going to go up, and it's going to be a little bit different. Because if you're watching this Orlando-Milwaukee game, Milwaukee's in a tussle with Orlando in game 1. Mm-hmm. If they don't come correct against Indiana, I understand that we all believe that the Heat is a superior team, and they've showed it all throughout this season. But if they don't bring the proper intensity and execute the way they can execute, they can't find themselves in a prolonged series. And a prolonged series, in my opinion, means probably a pretty quick exit in the next round.
I guess, beyond that, you mentioned intensity. I think that's interesting because I'm watching the Clippers-Dallas game yesterday, and I'm thinking if that game was played in front of fans, it might have gone totally differently, particularly the Porzingis ejection. There's just all those variables that don't exist right now because
and that Dallas crowd is one of 10, I would say, that actually do make a difference.
Right, correct. And here's the lineup, the one we expected: Dragic, Duncan, Jimmy, Jay Crowder, and Bam, with Derek Jones Jr., Hero, Iguodala, Olynyk, and Nunn available off the bench. But I mean, a couple things have happened. I'm watching that game yesterday, and I'm thinking there were some Dallas runs. If it had been in Dallas, that maybe the game wouldn't have been in Dallas. It would have been in LA, with some fake Clipper fans. But I do think that matters. But I also think what you're seeing in this Orlando-Milwaukee game is the no home court. It's like Milwaukee played the whole season, right, to get home court, not just in the first round, but in the Eastern Conference, and they're literally going to lose it to a garbage Orlando team in one day. I mean, it's so.
Are we learning? I hate to interrupt, but are we learning that referees really, really do pay attention to what the crowd is telling them to call?
Yeah, I was looking at those numbers. The home there is typically a home road variation of about 57% to 43%. That's typically what does because they are affected by the home crowd, and there's been no variation in the playoffs. So that does change things a little bit. I'm going to go to Kylie on this. Give me the one thing you want to happen for the Heat today.
I want to see Duncan shoot so many threes that he just falls over and dies because he's exhausted. His arms just fall off. I want him to see. Actually, I would like us to not score any other points but threes. That would bring me a lot of joy.
That might
That's what I
happen.
want.
But
It might,
if he
which
dies,
is crazy.
if he dies, Spoelstra's going to declare him a game time decision for game 2.
Put him in, coach. It's fine. Resuscitate him on the bench.
Ryan, what are you most afraid of with this Pacers?
Most afraid of the Pacers. I don't even want to say injury, but that's the only thing that could stop. I mean, you can't really say the I word, but right now it seems like 5 games, Heat in 5, and that's being kind because we have respect for Oladipo, but it should be a quick series.
Just 16 of 25 dunking threes, Danny comes in. We're going to start reading some of your comments in here as well. Alf and I, we did our predictions for the series on the pod. I don't think that the other 4 guys sorry, Kylie, I apologize. I'm used to a certain crowd here. The other 4 participants here have made their picks. Ryan, who do you like?
Heat in 5, for sure.
Brady?
Yeah, I said before, I think it'll be Heat in 6. I think the Heat are going to win 2 or 3 to start, and then maybe Indiana grabs 2 if we get complacent, and then they get the last one maybe in 6.
Alfredo?
Heat will sweep this series in 4 games.
Really?
Yes.
Cancel Ethan. Why are you canceling me for? I don't even have my headphones on today. So a sweep. I just okay. Look, again, it's difficult to evaluate because you're in a bubble. You don't have the home road splits and all that stuff. But like these teams were not that different in the regular season. I know they don't have Sabonis, but I mean Indiana was 2 games behind Miami before. They had a TJ Warren breakout in the bubble. Oladipo at least is healthier now. He's not healthy, but he's healthier than he was during the season. Brogdon and Oladipo have gotten minutes together now. They've worked in some guys, some role players like Sumner, etc. The holidays. Like, I do feel like cocky Heat fan Alf has gone a little too far in this one.
Yeah, I know. I might get impeached as Heat Twitter president, but we all see impeachment doesn't matter. So I think I think people are getting a little bit out of control with this stuff because if Oladipo has we're talking out of 4, 5, 6 games. If he has one crazy game, because he still has that in him,
right.
He's not 100% healthy, but he can go for 30, 35 minutes and go crazy on you. And we know that he can give up a big game to a quick, speedy, crafty guard. So he has a 35, 40-point game in him maybe. If he does that, if Sumner goes off, if Holiday goes off, right? If TJ Warren has 75% of one of his bubble games, like there's a lot of things that could happen that could lead to the Pacers pulling out 1 or 2 of these games. I would not be surprised if the Pacers won 2 of these games. If the Heat losing this series, I'd be super surprised, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm leaning more towards Pacers. I mean, Heat in 6. I need to say Heat in 5 because that's how you know you have the guts. Because we know the Heat like to gentleman sweep. They don't really, they're classy. Classiest franchise in the league. They like the gentleman sweep. They just don't like to blow people out. They want to let them save face. You don't want to embarrass Oladipo too bad if he's going to be your teammate in a few months. Like, you have to do the right thing. So I'm saying Heat in 5. I really, in my heart, believe Heat in 6, but I have to have the guts.
I think one of the biggest things to bounce off that is just talking about what they need. I think it's just limiting turnovers and limiting mistakes. Because Spoelstra talked about it yesterday, saying how they're top 3 in the bubble in steals and points off turnovers. That, especially with Sumner and Holiday now, that they've gone smaller with Sabonis out, that they're quicker and faster, and their big thing is just to chase people off the 3. So they're saying that they're just going to try to run you off the court a lot of plays when the guys come off the bench. So I think one of the biggest things is just taking control of the ball, which is one of the biggest things for Dragic coming in, is just having control and trust in your point guard to not make stupid passes or turnovers.
Yeah, I'm with you about Dragic, and I do think that this matchup does play into it. Whether we think Goran is a real distributing point guard or not, and he's really not based on his assist numbers, there is a calmness that he gives you when he's on the court that they don't really have from anybody else on the team except Jimmy. And you don't really want Jimmy doing it that often, and you also don't want to have to be completely reliant on the dribble handoff game with Kelly and Bam. And so I do think that's probably a better way to go. Danny's right. It settles them. I think it absolutely does. All right, let's look at the long-term ramifications of this, because I mean we're all assuming a win here. Alf, I think you're a little more circumspect, which I agree with. We're all assuming a win. What if they don't? Like, what if they don't? I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about what if they don't win this series? Because this franchise has been on a certain trajectory over the past, 18 to 24 months. This has been very positive, or 18 months or so. But if they lose this series, how much do the narratives change, Alf? Either Alf.
Go ahead. I'll talk.
Okay, I think. Well, we've seen it before. Riley in the past has had some Heat teams fail spectacularly, and there's always been a great reckoning in that offseason. So I think if they lose this series, there will be people that will be blamed, and those that are blamed, I think, won't be here next year. And it could be a Kendrick Nunn. It could be, who knows? It could be the young kids. If Tyler Hero, I'm just spitballing here, but let's say Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson are absolutely terrible in this series and they lose. You could see them package those two guys for a Bradley Beal much, much easier than they would if they actually win this series and those two guys play
Al,
well.
do you think? I'm with you typically with Riley, although he was patient with certain teams. But would he make those sweeping generalizations off this kind of circumstance? I guess that's because it's such a weird thing, right? Like it's not normal. Like I understand Kendrick Nunn may play his way off the Heat, because the way things have gone lately, if he can't pull it together, he might. But are you really going to change your opinion of Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero off this series? I think if they're going to move him, either of them, it's going to be because there's a Donovan Mitchell available. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be because of the way that those guys play right now.
I think if you I'm thinking if you see like an epic collapse from Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hill just doesn't look ready for the big stage, I could see maybe where you think like that. But I honestly, I don't know how much their plans are going to change no matter what happens in these playoffs, because I think this was always a bridge year. Like, I think the bigger mistake would be to get to a game 7 in the second round and decide that you need to pay everybody and keep everybody around and extend everybody and let's keep run it back another time. That would be the mistake. The mistake wouldn't be to say maybe some of these guys aren't ready. I don't think the plan changes unless somehow you get to the finals. And even then, I mean, whatever your plan was, there's very little about these playoffs that should change your trajectory going forward.
What do you think, Ryan?
All right. So regarding what exactly, like, where are we taking this? Like, what exactly are we talking about for a second?
I mean, I just think we're saying, does the narrative of this team, are major decisions made for the Heat going forward based on what happens in this series?
Well, yeah. Well, it's the playoffs. This is, the world's watching. I feel like Alf below me kind of explained it best. Those players that are on the squad become expendable. This is a win now league. Pat Riley doesn't have that many years left. So you want to get the big names that are already kind of becoming magnetic to our squad. You have the big names already in line. So if it doesn't work out, then you go to plan B or C, which is like a Beal or I don't know if Mitchell, but definitely Oladipo.
Let's get into Depot a little more, Kylie.
Really quick, I just wanted to say that I agree with Alf, but that I just don't think that. I think that this is where they thought that this season was going to end anyway. Honestly, obviously, not in this COVID sense, but in the sense of where they want to be in the playoffs. I think they were planning for this season already, so I don't think anything's going to change.
Well, I'm with you on Kylie. When I talked to people before the season, I said, what would be a successful year this year? And I was told growth of the young players and get to the second round. And really, they've been on course to do it. The growth of the young players, I think, has been even better than they anticipated, whether it's Bam, Hero, now Robinson, or Nunn before the failures lately. I just think that that has been the trajectory. I just wonder too. I mean, there's the Giannis narrative. Look, Milwaukee's not going to lose this series, but they're losing by 11 right now in their opener. In ostensibly a home game, I guess, with 6 minutes left against a team that doesn't have either of its starting forwards.
Giannis to Miami.
But that stuff's going to start. That stuff is going to start. But I do think what we're seeing with Milwaukee, and we talked about this a lot on 5 on the Floor, Alf, is that the playing field was leveled for a team like Milwaukee, which was historically great in the regular season. Like, their metrics were as good as the 73-win Warriors, okay? Historically great. but losing the 3 months, the continuity, having some older players, and taking away their home court, and they haven't played well in the bubble. Like, it's not just today. Like, they literally have not played well in the bubble, and now they're down 14. So in the first game against Orlando. So I do think it's going to give hope. I just wonder if the message to Eric Spoelstra to his players is, look, we can play with anybody. And I was told by some people close to Heat players, we're going to the finals. That was their motto. We're going to the finals. That they think they're going to kill it in this bubble. They think they have the most depth. They think Milwaukee's advantage has been mitigated. All right, give me one more. I don't know who's trying to pop on here. It's always Alex at the last minute, but I don't think he's jumping on this one. Give me one more key, Brady, one we haven't talked about, and then we're going to kind of let this flow into the game.
I'd probably just say just the continue Jay Crowder, just the shooting he's been putting on and the defense, everything he's been putting on. I just think he's been the key piece, the most consistent piece for this team throughout the bubble for sure. I think if he keeps up what he's doing and probably he's going to be guarding TJ Warren if Butler isn't guarding him at times. So I think he's going to be a big part on defense and especially on offense.
Yeah, this is another one. Chris Middleton, James Jordan comes in. Chris Middleton getting traded if he keeps playing like this. I said that to me there were like 5 really important players in the bubble, like who are going to determine their franchise's future. Chris Middleton's one of them. Paul George is another one. There are just certain guys, like if they get to a certain level, their team can go somewhere. And if Milwaukee loses in the playoffs, Middleton's probably going to get blamed, and Giannis is probably going to be on his way out the door. Alf, we've talked this thing to death. Has there been something else you want to get into here?
Which Alf? You got 2 Alfs, which is not a normal thing for any kind of sports show. Multiple Alfs. No, I think Brady has a great point with the Jay Crowder stuff because they relied heavily on Jay Crowder shooting that starting lineup. And listen, to quote the great Tony Fiorentino, water reaches its level, Eric. If water reaches its level,
Eric.
I was trying to be respectful, but here you go. If water reaches its level with Jay Crowder, we're looking at a big regression. And if that happens, then there's a dearth of shooting in that starting lineup that kind of scares you a little bit, just on the whole team, in fact. So I think Jay Crowder is a huge piece of if they're going to be successful moving forward. And so I have a question for everybody. Like, we know how well the Heat play against the Magic. Like, who are you rooting for? The Magic to upset the Bucks? And then you have to play the Magic. I'm telling you, Magic play the Heat second round. Magic are sweeping.
Terrence Ross is as good as Giannis when he plays us. So
no, I know. Well,
look at Vooch.
They got French Booker.
Exactly.
This is literally the only good game I've seen Terrence Ross have when it wasn't against the Heat. He's got 18 today. I just think with Milwaukee, as great as Giannis is, the thing that makes them vulnerable is the defense that they play, which has been so good, plays right into the Heat hands. Like the Heat have been built to beat a team like the Bucks. Like the whole defensive style the Bucks play, giving up the threes. And Orlando shoots the three pretty well too. Some of their guys, Fournier in particular, and Ross. And so you were going to have some. I mean, Fultz doesn't, but you're going to have some of these situations.
Vukovic is gonna hang a 40 burger on the Bucks. That's interesting.
See, against the Heat, it'd be 40 and 25.
Oh yeah.
Can we jump into Bam and what we expect from him in the series?
Yeah, sure.
Because I mean, in the bubble, he wasn't really an all-star. Bam. We expect him to be that though in the series at least, right?
I mean, I would. I don't think he totally had his wind. I also think that it took a little bit of time to kind of incorporate him when the ball was in Hero's hands a little bit more and they were distributing some of that. To me, it's all about aggression with Bam. I'd rather him go 2 of 7 in the first quarter if he has to get it out of his system just to be aggressive and set that mindset. But what do I expect from Bam? He doesn't like Miles Turner. That's been pretty apparent. I know we have people on the case trying to figure out why, other than getting cut for him on the national team. But there's something there, and he has single-handedly taken the Pacers out of some of these games. And so I think they recognize how good he is. I think he's a problem for them, but he's got to be aggressive from the jump. And he does. And I think the other thing we should talk about is Jimmy needs to get in the post more. I think that using his advantages in the post, Jimmy may not get the 18-foot jumper going, but he might get that turnaround going, that Wade turnaround post jumper. hits a couple of those, I think that will improve his confidence going forward. All right, final thoughts, guys. We're gonna let everybody go into the game here. Final thoughts. We're gonna have a post game podcast, Alex. Podcast. We're gonna have a post game podcast after the game with the 5 on the Floor crew. Final thoughts. You each have 30 seconds. What are you looking to see today, Alfredo? Go ahead.
Okay, it's the playoffs, so a little bit more added responsibility, which means your stars have to be stars. They got to carry the load. You can't be looking around to see other people bail you out or try to even play too much team ball if games get close. So I expect Bam, I expect Jimmy to be the all-stars that they are, and Goran Dragic to come up big when asked.
Kylie, 30.
I'm going to say kind of on the other side of things here, I want to see the guys who don't get as many minutes and who don't score as much. I want to see everybody trying to hit double-digit points. I want to see Derek Jones hitting double-digit points. I want to see these guys who aren't on the floor making a lot of time when they do get the opportunity to get out there.
Ryan?
Yes. As mentioned, it's the playoffs, so it's the center stage. You saw Donovan Mitchell. He had a big game, and Twitter erupted. So if some of our guys can do similar, that would be pretty cool, where we get the national notoriety. You get Duncan Robinson on the covers of magazines. So I think it's a great selling opportunity for the Heat.
Look at you. You're always the salesman, our marketing guy. Brady, 30 seconds.
I think just like from before, I think it's just got to be Tyler Hero off the bench without a lot of scoring coming off the bench. I think he's been a primary playmaker for this time in the bubble, but I think this is the time now that the playoffs are starting that he's going to need to be that scoring spark that he was midseason.
Alf?
I want to see the Heat shooters be the shooters they've been all year long. And one thing against the Pacers I'd like to see is the Heat dominate the boards, because this is one of the few matchups where they're the bigger team. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen much the rest of the playoffs, right?
No.
So they are the bigger team. The Pacers don't have Sabonis. I would love to see the Heat completely dominate the boards on both sides, and just I would like to see a statement game one. If Heat Twitter wants me to believe in Heat in 5, I would like to see a double-digit win today.
I don't think it's going to be a double-digit win today. I think they're
Neither
going
do
to I think they're going to have to hold on for dear life. And I think they're going to have to execute some stuff down the stretch. I have them by 5 today. I want to see them win a game like that. They need to win a game like that, okay? And figure out who's going to make plays from down the stretch, who the 5 are going to be today. Is Jimmy going to make the right plays for other people like he was doing earlier in the season, or are there going to be some mistakes? But I do like the Heat in 5. By 5 today. I do like the Heat by 5 in the series, but you could talk me into 6. I think there's going to be a couple games. Everybody's going to be like, which Holiday was that who just had 24 against us? This feels like that kind of team. And the Heat had some trouble with focus this year when they weren't at home. And they're not at home. So, it's a lot. Their young guys played off the crowd this year. There is no crowd. So I think for somebody like Goran, this is a good circumstance. But there may be some moments for Hero, Robinson, Nunn, etc. that are a little treacherous. All right, check out 5reasonsports.com. Brady will have takeaways after the game. Also, we're not going to go halftime today, but we are going to do a post-game pod. We may have a post-game stream, maybe. So check back with us later. Buy the T-shirts at 5reasonsports.com. We all should be wearing them. I didn't have a clean one, even though I've got 10 here. So I'll get to that. And have a good day. Enjoy the game.
All righty.
All right.